and that includes the best fried bologna sandwiches in town. Just ask the Matador. That's right, Tom's Fuel and Mart, where you can find 100% gasoline. That means no ethanol, folks, for your lawnmowers and small engines. Do it. With locations on South Lee Highway, Wildwood, and North Ocoee, Tom's Fuel Mart, with the red and yellow sign 25 feet from the street, is ready to serve you. Yee-haw!
Dr. Christopher Chase, with Associates in Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery, now in Cleveland on Wednesdays at 2350 Ocoee Street. Call 624-0021 for an appointment now. Certified by the American Board of Surgery and the American Board of Plastic Surgery. Offering facial procedures, body contouring, skin resurfacing, and specializing in breast augmentation, including the newest transumbilical or belly button augmentation for less scarring, ladies. Call Dr. Christopher Chase for an appointment now, 624-0021.
When you buy or sell or pawn,
you can't go wrong at U.S. Money Shops.
when money's tight, you'll be
Cause
alright.
relief's inside at U.S. Money Shops.
Hi, Glenn here from U.S. Money Shops. My friends always ask me, do you have flat screen TVs? Do you have tools? Do you have video games? Do you have jewelry? And my answer is always the same. Yes, yes, and yes. And all at a fraction of regular retail prices.
On with us,
We'll earn your trust.
sell to us, without any fuss. Buy from us.
You can rely on us.
If you're like most of us looking for the best deals available on brand name merchandise, then come visit us because there's no reason to pay full retail prices. U.S. Money Shops. Wide selection, great prices. So come on down to one of our 9 convenient locations. Visit usmoneyshops.com for the one nearest you.
Buy or sell or pawn today. The better way at U.S. Money Shops.
U.S. Money Shops. Buy, sell, pawn, we do it all.
No dealers allowed.
Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933, offering the best with over 70 styles of recliners, sofas, electronic lift chairs, full living room packages. Call Mike now at 961-7239 because Jackson Catnapper now offers sales to the public
Every Saturday. That's right. Every Saturday.
from 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. Or call Mike at 961-7239 or go see him
Every Saturday.
at 1911 King Edward Avenue, just across from the main plant. Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933, 961-7239.
No dealers allowed.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Woo FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
Well, welcome back, everybody. I'd like to ask, what did you think about Hillary Clinton's testimony this past week? Any comments?
I'll
Anybody
let
wants to-
Franklin go first.
Well, I thought it was like an adult talking to children in most places. I will say that I thought that our senator accounted himself very well. His questions were sober. They were serious in nature, not just grandstanding like some of the.
You talking about Corker?
Yes. I thought he's really elevated himself.
Bob Corker's a great guy. If you've been around him, I mean,
Sharp.
sharp.
The
He's just all.
The Republican Party could use a lot more Bob Corkers.
Well, the Democrat Party could use a lot less Hillary Clintons.
Well,
I mean, when you have a Secretary of State who presided over really several major disasters in her term, but the worst of which is the death of 4 people, and she's able to flippantly and angrily say it's no big deal.
That's not what she
that
said.
line will follow her the rest of her life.
I'm sure that somebody will try to spin that line by taking one half of the line and not taking the other half. That wasn't what she said at all.
It is what it is.
I don't care what she said before.
What she said-
you don't
What's
ever
the
say
definition
that.
of it? She got that from her husband, I think.
You know, she was talking about what's important is learning the lessons of it and figuring out how to make sure that it not happen again. That was what she was talking about. That's what she said.
Well, once again, the people that heard her say it, you didn't really know what you heard, and the liberals have to explain to you what you heard because you're too ignorant to
I didn't say
understand
that
it
at
on your
all.
own.
What I'm saying is, listen to the whole sentence and then make your decision. You don't take 8 words out of it and say this is what they said when there's 15 more that follow it.
Well, Franklin, a lot of what she said is nobody was disciplined. You know, we still don't know anything. We still don't have anybody in custody. And some of the very people in Algeria that attacked our people there at the oil refinery were the same people that were attacking that embassy in Benghazi.
Well, that has not been confirmed yet, number one. Number two, the investigation from a criminal standpoint, according to this hearing, was still ongoing.
That's the fundamental problem. This is not a criminal action. This is a terrorist action. It is an act of war against our country, and it should be prosecuted as such.
We're not saying that.
Well, Franklin, when you don't let the military in and the FBI takes 3 weeks to even make it to the site.
The identification of who was involved is an ongoing investigation. You can't just go over and go, all right, folks, come on, we're taking you in. It doesn't work that way.
Franklin, the problem is this administration views these things as criminal acts, and they treat them as criminal acts. Previous administrations, including Democratic administrations, have viewed these things as military actions. And the military, they didn't say, we've got to figure out exactly who did this so we can bring them to trial. What they said is, we know the people that did it are right over there, and we're going to blow the crap out of them.
There's not a shred of evidence to suggest that this administration doesn't go after bad guys.
Franklin,
in fact, they've been far more successful than the previous
administration. They had
administration.
one of the main ones in custody, and they couldn't even get the country to hold on to him.
Anyway, let's just talk about some real facts here. Mr. Obama, you know, he made a big deal out of of Miss Clinton as she's ready to leave the cabinet post, and he went on to say it's been a great collaboration over the last 4 years. I'm going to miss her. Wish she was sticking around, but she has logged so many miles. I can't begrudge her wanting to take it easy for a little bit. Now then, does that sound like a guy that was really enjoyed the job that person did and didn't want her to leave? You know,
absolutely it did. I saw the interview. I didn't see anything in his.
I think he owes Bill Clinton for the speech at the convention, which helped Obama a lot, and I think he's trying to pay him back. But there's no loss of the number of stories from both conservative and liberal sides that there's not a great friendship there.
I don't know how to break this to you, but Hillary Clinton remains today the most popular political figure in the United States of America, and far more popular.
I wish he was president right now.
Well, maybe you do, and you may get your wish still.
I don't know.
But her approval rating is almost 70%.
Well,
and
Franklin,
that means there are a lot of
to whom
the problem
nationwide.
The problem
and that
with
means
approval,
there are a lot of Republicans. Who
Franklin, the problem with approval ratings is there's a new study out that shows just how much impact the media's coverage of Obama has made. He got almost a 2-to-1 positive coverage ratio.
What about Obama getting into it with Fox today? What about Obama?
Well, anybody that disagrees with him, it's straight out of the Saul Alinsky, handbook. You vilify your opponent. So if you don't support his gun control measure, it's because you don't like children and you're in the pocket of the NRA. If you don't support his
Fox is turning on itself now.
Well, Franklin, how often have you heard a president single out one media outlet for the kind of really attacks that this president had? It's like a third world dictator is what he's doing. It's the same type of things that Castro or Hugo Chavez did to their opposition.
Did we just talk about CBS editing?
It was NBC.
NBC editing things while we were on break. This came up. NBC editing what really takes place at a news
and if they did that, shame on them.
Well, they did it once before, Franklin.
Once. Shame on them for that, too.
Well, shame on them. Let's just slap them. Why don't we put them out of business?
Well, that's easy.
Well, the point
Let
is,
the
Franklin.
people rise up and not watch
Well, the
them.
point is, Franklin, why hadn't the president called NBC News out for their shameless editing that they did in the gun control tragedy?
If you lie, he's called the NRA okay. If you're just a flat liar, it seems to be okay.
Well, here's what I would say about Fox News. If Fox News wants to stop giving aid and cover to lunatics going on about the president's birth certificate.
No, I don't actually. I don't think anybody. In fact,
Fox did not drive that
even
story.
Been resolved
Fox,
yet.
wait a minute. Fox did not even.
It's been resolved.
No, wait a minute.
It's been
Franklin,
resolved.
Fox did not even drive that story. Yeah. NBC News drove that story, and the reason they drove that story is because they did it in the narrative to make us look crazy and actually help the president. The president drove that story.
John, the president didn't even comment on this story.
I can tell you during the
campaign,
campaign, Franklin, the number counts on the number of stories on the birther issue far outseated at MSNBC than it did Fox. MSNBC ran that story and drove that story because they thought the story actually helped the president, which it probably did.
You guys are going to have to live by the sword and die by the sword. The rise of the conservative movement over the last 20 years was
Franklin,
largely driven
watching this
by conservative media.
Watching this
That's
president,
the fact.
I tend to agree with you. There is a real risk of us dying by the sword because I think he's very close to a dictator at this point.
Well, let me tell you something,
I got news for you, John.
Let
Whether you like it or not, in 4 years we're going to have an election and the American people will decide again. The facts are that this president got 5 million more votes than your guy did. The facts are there were 4 million more people who voted for Democrats in congressional elections than Republicans in congressional elections.
And
it's called democracy.
You're right, Franklin.
And your party just doesn't like the fact
first off,
you're
Franklin,
losers.
this country is not a democracy. It's a federal republic. And secondly, if you're doing that, the facts are that the majority of people watch Snooki and the Jersey Shore.
No, the majority of people don't watch that. Instead, your party has then launched its latest assault on democracy this week, where the Virginia State House has tried to pass a bill that would change the way their electoral votes are allocated so that Romney would have won the state of Virginia even though he only got 46% of the vote, but he would have gotten 70% of the electoral votes. And they're trying to do that in 9 other states. They want to take your vote away so they can ram this conservative agenda.
You don't think the immigration laws fixing to be passed going to affect anything?
From what I've seen, there are a lot of Republicans lining up behind that.
Well,
gentlemen,
I appreciate this,
but I have to run to a court appearance.
Hey, we'll see you, Your Honor. He's got on his robe right now. He's leaving the building. He's got his robe on. Do we have a call?
Yes.
Go ahead, caller.
I was starting to think you had given the guys sedatives this morning because the first 40 minutes, so they were extremely calm. Can I go back to a previous topic on the Boy Scouts?
Sure.
Okay. I want to add a couple of things because I have a little bit of background in both organizations. The United States is one of the few non-Muslim countries that Girl Scout and Boy Scout are not in the same organization. Now, I do not know how they handle the camping situations, but the meetings and everything are run together. The Boy Scouts also has an older separate group called Ventures that is co-ed, and I am not aware how they handle camping situations either. But I don't actually have a problem so much with Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts being together, as long as they are kind of separated on campouts. But the whole issue of the homosexual thing, John hit the nail on the head earlier when he said that they are opening their charter organizations up to lawsuits. They are passing the buck. They're passing the responsibility. The Supreme Court has already upheld their right to exclude anyone they want to exclude. And now, because of a small amount of pressure, and I must say it's small because there hasn't been a whole lot in the news media about this, but they're bowing into that pressure, and they're going to say, okay, we're not going to deal with it. We're going to close our eyes. It's you little guys. It's the council's responsibility. It's the charter organization's responsibility, and it's opening those up to lawsuits for the very reason that John brought up. It's not going to be the organization causing lawsuits. It's going to be the homosexuals and even possibly the atheists who come in and say, I was not accepted. And then they're going to file a discrimination lawsuit, and it's going to end up a result that there's not going to be Boy Scout troops. Organizations are going to be dropping them like flies and doing other groups, 4-H or some other Rangers or Pathfinders program.
Well, the problem is this is completely basically a bully situation. Private organizations, private clubs are started in this country every day. There was no problem with the gay and lesbian groups. If they wanted a program for young gay boys, they could have started their own program. But what they did is, because they want to force the rest of society to accept them, they've attacked the Boy Scouts. And the sad thing here is they probably, over the course of some time, may actually succeed in destroying the program. So the most successful program for young boys in our country over the last 100 years probably will end up being a victim of the gay and lesbian bullying, basically. Yes. And so when its demise comes and it falls down, I hope they're happy, because what they've done is they've deprived millions of boys of an opportunity that they would have benefited from greatly.
Yes. And hello?
We're still there?
Yeah.
Okay, another thing about these files that they had to produce, that actually was the result of a lawsuit in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints organization. A boy was in a troop where he was molested. The leader was kicked out. Several years later, he comes back to the church. He says, "Oh, I'm cured. I've been through therapy. I want to be a leader again." The church says, "Okay." National Council says, "We don't think this is a good idea," and the church says, "No, this is what we want," and they put the leader back in place. Now, here's where it gets really stupid. The parents of the boy who was molested put him back in the troop with the molester and thought everything would be okay, and then when the boy was molested again, then they caused a stink and said, "You should have done something about this." Well, something was done about this, and the Boy Scouts have been vilified for actually doing their job. And like John said, some of these things were just accusations, and sometimes the Boy Scouts wanted to call the police on someone, and the parents said, "No, we don't want our names involved. We're not going to press any charges." And BSA is saying, "Well, we wish you would," but they were going on the way things were handled at that time and letting the parents make the decision, and the parents were saying no. So BSA is just, no matter what they do, they're vilified for all the good they do, and that's just an indicator of where our country's going. Where the more good you do, the more evil.
Well, here's the amazing thing: the gay and lesbian groups in this country have spent decades now attacking the Boy Scouts. Where's the first attack on the Ground Zero Mosque? Because Islam calls for death to homosexuals. In Denmark, where the immigration of the Muslim community has greatly expanded over the last few years, has seen an 80% increase in the homosexual assault rate in Denmark. So if the gay and lesbian groups were really concerned with making a difference, why aren't they criticizing Islam? Why aren't they criticizing the mosques? Why aren't they saying, "Why are you calling for death to homosexuals?" But instead, we're over here attacking an organization that's done nothing but good for young men for the last 100 years.
Exactly.
Got one more for you, Lisa Poe, before you hang up. Let you and John talk about this. This Massachusetts boy that he was 5 years old. He was warned by the school principal for making Lego toy guns. And his parents were sent a letter of warning. And
you had a girl sent home because she drew a picture of a gun.
What in the world is going on in our country? I mean, have we got people so stupid that are running our organizations that can't comprehend a 5-year-old or 6-year-old, drawing a picture of a gun versus making a Lego gun and being able to deal with that on the spot without having to do
One of them
this.
brought a G.I. Joe gun in and got suspended. Now think about a G.I. Joe gun probably was about 3/4 of an inch long piece of plastic, and they sent him home because it was a gun replica.
I mean, what is the deal here?
It is stupidity.
I mean, it's just we've lost our common sense in this world, I think.
Well, the people that are pushing the gun control debate, they don't care about actually making a difference. Let me give you an example. This is great. You know the New York law that they rushed through because they were going to make a difference? Guess what they didn't do in that law, Steve?
What?
They didn't exclude law enforcement. So now it's illegal for any police officer to have a clip over 7 rounds. So every police officer on the street, who, by the way, are carrying 15 and 17-round clips and 30-round clips in their assault rifles, are now breaking the law because they weren't smart enough to think that law through.
Did you see Mayor Bloomberg, or whatever his name was the other day, had 5 armed guards around him?
Oh, well, there's even better than that. The president of Media Matters, which is the George Soros-funded, Democrat, basically, conglomerate, has now been found that they bought handguns with Media Matters money. They gave it to a guard to guard the president, who illegally carried it. He had no permit. He carried it in Washington, D.C., which is about 4 different felonies. He carried it, they think, at a Democratic event out in California where none other than Senator Dianne Feinstein attended with him for years. And now the emails show they've covered it up. They actually paid for the gun in Maryland in cash, so there would be no record of it. And it was Media Matters cash. Now, these are the leading people who are pushing for gun control.
Yeah. This reporter was trying to ask this mayor. I hope you saw this clip. It was on the news in several places where he asked the mayor if he was going to get rid of his armed forces, also the ones that are protecting him with his gun control. And, then they had these 5 guys just basically boot this guy out of the way that was trying to ask the question. I thought it was hilarious.
Well, you had a gentleman, you talk about the high-capacity clips. You had an elderly man in the streets, and I'll be honest, I don't remember which town this was, but it was just last week, was beaten to death by 5 men with tire irons. You want to know who needs a high-capacity clip? A guy with 5 people beating him to death with tire irons. That's who needs a high-capacity clip.
Yeah.
But the government has legislated stupidity. They have passed so many laws to dumb down everybody, and that's their goal, because the dumber you make people, the easier it is to get them to follow you.
Well, Steve, I know we got to get off here. I do want y'all to know what I was talking about the media. The NBC ran a story that said that one of the parents, they had a testimony by parents of the Sandy Hook people, and they said that this parent was heckled by the gun crazies in the crowd. And they showed the tape of it where the parent made a statement about who can answer why we need these kinds of weapons, and people yelled out the Second Amendment and heckled him. The problem is they edited the tape. He asked that question and there was complete silence in the room. No one said a word. And then he asked the question again and actually challenged and said, can no one give me an answer? And at that point, someone in the crowd said the Second Amendment. But NBC News edited all of the weight, all of the second request for an answer from the man out of that tape and ran edited tape to make it look like someone disrespectfully yelled out at this poor victim of the shooting up there. And to this day, they haven't taken it back, although Slate Magazine, who ran the original story, has now retracted the story based on the edited tape.
That's why you can't depend on the news, liberal
NBC
news.
Not a little
news,
fly-by-night.
Yeah. All right, Lisa Poe, thanks for calling.
Okay, bye.
See you. John, appreciate you coming in today. Franklin had to buzz on us a little early. I've got an announcement to make. I'm going to be out for a couple of weeks. So Miss Lisa Guerin, who's fixing to do your news here in just a minute, will be sitting in with me, and you're going to get a female perspective of Backfire in the next 2 weeks. So I'll see you later, everybody. Enjoyed it, and be back soon. Bye-bye.
Listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson, John Stanberry, and Franklin Chansey. Catch them again on Whoop FM at noon today and every Wednesday morning from 7:30 to 8:30. Now, back to more music on Whoop FM.
Log on, listen, and watch at whoopfm.com.
No dealers allowed.
Jackson Catnapper,